What's going on, everybody? This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Barossa Transport. Barossa Transport offers comprehensive services for all your transportation and property needs, including vehicle transport, heavy equipment hauling, property cleanup, all sorts of stuff like that. Their dedicated team ensures reliable and efficient service, providing custom solutions tailored to your specific project requirements. Call Barossa Transport now at 707-358-2859 for a free quote. Tell them your boys from Like It or Not sent you.
All right, guys, I got to tell you about our good friend Kyle Thompson with Thompson Construction. Let me tell you, if you need some excavating, grading, general engineering contractor based out of Ukiah, California, and they do it all, specializing especially in septic system installation and repairs, which, trust me, is hard to find. So if you're having any kind of septic issues, this is the company you need. Also, repairs with land and site development for residential, commercial, agricultural, pond construction and lining, retaining wall construction, hillside drainings, drainage systems, underground utilities, water, gas, sewer, all of that stuff. Electrical, they can do it. They'll repair it, install it, whatever you need. They're OQ certified for PG&E excavation and backfill. You want a swimming pool dug? They could do that. I mean, it goes on and on. Truck servicing, defensible space for fire prevention. So Thompson Construction, look, they love what they do, and they take the utmost pride in their work and customer satisfaction, which is hard to find these days. So they put a great attention to detail. No job is too big or too small. So call Thompson Construction today at 707-391-7679.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Mystic Bodywork. Woo! Mystic Bodywork offers an array of treatments and therapies for the body and soul.
Yes.
Massage, red light therapy, readings, facials, cuppings, they do it all. They're located right here in Ukiah. They have a new holistic wellness center that they just opened called The Well, and they provide a nurturing space for personal growth and spiritual exploration.
Nice.
Yeah, they have a bunch of classes coming up. Upcoming classes include a psychic medium, a seasonal detox, herbal cleanse, astrology and tarot readings. Also, they do vinyasa, yoga, breath work, circles,
little upward
classes, monthly full moon sound journeys, and Reikis.
Like it. Little Reiki healing's always good for the soul.
Yeah, this is the place that Drew needs to go, and you need to go there also. You can check out all that they have available at mysticbodywork.com, or you can call to schedule an appointment today at 707-380-4742.
Also, OG sponsor, The Original, has been helping us for a long time. Got to give a big thanks to the Thirsty Axe. You can check them out on thirstyaxe.com. Visit that site for all the cool stuff they got going on. They do a fun trivia night. They do karaoke. You can throw axes at zombies, play pool, cocktails, food, live performance, music. They got it all. So if you're ever wondering what to do on a rather uneventful Friday night in Ukiah, maybe Saturday or any day of the week for that matter, go down to the Thirsty Axe. Tell them the boys that Like It or Not sent you down there. Have a good time and have a drink on us. DC Customs. Love these guys. They do such cool work. You got to check out some of the rides they have put up on their Instagram. I mean, they're next level. Suited and booted from the floor to the ceiling. So whatever you're looking to do, whether you just want to lie next to bed, get some new wheels, or customize any kind of ride up or down, slam it or lift it, DC Customs has your back. You can check them out at dccustoms.net or give them a call at 707-463-2227.
My name is Carter Lane.
I'm Drew Nickel.
Welcome to the show.
Whether you like it or not.
Oh my God. I think you have a problem, bro.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh my goodness.
Drew, dude, the cops are here again. What
dude,
the fuck, man? Why you got to call the cops? Dude, I didn't know you were a cop caller.
I was trying to convince him to shoot you before the podcast started, but he wouldn't do it.
Oh, come on. Everybody knows it's not a party until the cops show up.
Or the guns come out, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I was
Yeah, we have a better relationship with law enforcement these days than we did in our previous lives.
Yeah, well, everybody can, have a redemption story, right?
Well,
we
I
served
tend to
our
think
time.
so too.
Yeah.
When I was 17, all I knew about the police is I didn't like them behind me, and I really didn't want to talk to them.
Right.
Yeah,
Has that changed?
Not really. Well, I take it back. I've been in a few tense situations where I'm damn glad that some other cops are behind me.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, where you stand often depends on where you sit at the moment. So, when I was younger, I didn't really enjoy having the cops in the rear view.
yeah. How old were you when you started realizing you wanted to get into law enforcement?
It was kind of a fluke thing for me. I started when I was about 21. A friend of mine worked for the sheriff's office, and then another friend of mine that I was going to the junior college with, he went to work for the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. And so at that moment in time, I applied to go to work at the jail, and I thought, well, it's something to do until I find something else to do. And for some strange reason, it just seemed to fit.
Yeah,
I mean,
seem to like it.
yeah, I have always felt very fortunate to have the job that I have.
You still like it?
Yes, very much so. I got 4 years left until this term is up. I'm going to make a decision in 27 or 28 whether I run again, but I'll have almost 40 years in 29.
Wow.
But
So-
this year, I haven't worked as many 6-day weeks as what I have in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I've started to take more Sundays off.
Nice. And so, if you don't decide to run again, will that mean you're going to retire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay.
I mean, I hit retirement age last year, and, I just hit 35 years. But I've got so many irons in the fire and so many things to do. And the other thing is, I think that right now our county is heading in a really good direction. I'm really happy with where the sheriff's office is going. I'm pretty happy with a lot of the directions that the county is taking, and I think we have some hills to climb with the budget, but at the same time, that's kind of a good thing because we're going to be able to kind of, really work this out and find out what's important and what's not. I think we're going to see some good things happen in the next couple of years.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, let's get into some of that. I want to talk about where we're going and how the recent political shift is affecting Mendocino County and all that stuff. What do you? Because last time you were here, it was kind of a shit show. Mm-hmm. And you were working really hard, kind of with your hands tied behind your back, and there were some things that you were hoping would shift. And so, give us an update in the last year or so. How have things shifted, and what's it like for you now?
So one of the main things that I see is that Prop 36 passed in the state of California in all counties, and that was a big eye opener. That we had gone too far in one direction, and the public, my God, they brought us back to the middle on that.
And was Prop 36 the one that gives you back the stick a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, remember he was on here saying, "Well, we basically decriminalized crime, right?
Yeah.
They're robbing CVS blind, and everything's behind cages, and people
Right.
had enough of that shit."
Yeah, and now all of a sudden, legislators who would not have a conversation with the sheriffs or police chiefs, they wouldn't have a conversation in the least. They just bulldozed legislation through. But there were all of these different things that happened. Chesa Bodine, who was the district attorney in San Francisco County, he got ousted. All right, they had a recall election on him. He's gone. Pamela Price in Alameda County, she's gone. All of these people who were, I would say, kind of the anti-public safety types, that combined with the fact that we had Prop 36 passed, now all of a sudden our elected officials and legislators are saying, hey, before we do this, let's have a conversation with law enforcement. Let's actually talk to them. With the exception of Mr. Gavin Newsom, still haven't gotten a call back from him.
You call him?
Huh?
You call him?
Oh, I've called him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I won't call him again because he won't return his damn phone calls, and he won't meet up with the sheriffs. And okay, fine.
Why do you think that is?
Because he wants to live in an echo chamber where no one calls him on policies.
Yeah. You see, he's got a podcast too. Have you seen that? And he's out there. And
You got any other good jokes, Drew?
I mean, it is a funny joke when you watch it, and like the way he just wormies around any real conversation about what's actually going on. But
What are the reasons? I'm interested in this. What are your reasons for not liking him? What's your big couple?
My big two reasons:
Yeah.
that he refuses to have a conversation with anybody with a different point of view, and if you ever truly believe that you are the smartest guy in the room, you are in the wrong damn room. You are. I mean, that's just the way that it works.
So he's not teachable.
No, and the issue for me is if you don't talk to both sides, if you don't talk to the people who disagree with you, you're only getting half the story. That's all you're going to get. And, simply dismissing all the law enforcement leaders, dismissing anybody who has an opposing point of view and refusing to have a conversation with him, I'm sorry, he's not representing me personally as a resident of the state of California. And, you're tying your hands behind your back without even knowing it. And then the other thing is, any of these leaders, and right now we're in this terrible time in the United States, and let's face it, we're in a terrible time because all of our leaders, instead of working for us to fix these problems, they're working against each other. And if a Democrat has the greatest idea on the face of the earth, the Republicans are going to just stomp on it because it's a Democrat that brought it forward. If the Republicans have the greatest idea on the face of the earth, the Democrats are going to stomp on it because a Republican brought it forward. And that's not how we should be in the United States. And what happened to the good old days where the champions had respect for one another?
so if Gavin Newsom, let's say he calls, he says, "All right, Sheriff, I got your message. Calling you back. What do you want? What do you want to say to me? What's the point you want to get across?"
You have the power to veto a lot of the laws that came through that hamstringed, that put the public and victims in second place as opposed to putting the criminals in. It's basically everything is centered on the criminal right now and not on the victims. And when we have legislation like that, that's ridiculous. And who does justice actually belong to at the end of the day? It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to the judge. The judge is a person who is hired to hand it down in a fashion that is fair, within social norms. This is the system that we came up with. But ultimately, justice belongs to the victim. And they've completely forgotten about the victims in all these cases.
I don't think they forgot. I think it's intentional. I mean, it has to be. They can't be so dumb as to forget or not understand the unintended consequences. I mean, to me, it just seems like it's absolutely intentionally that way because, the more you depower the general populace, the more power he gets.
Yeah. Well, I see it. I do see your point there, but the way that I look at it is there was this big push for the reform of criminal justice, okay, because we have too many people in prison. And we do. Let's face it. In a modern world, we have too many people in prison. But the way that when they drained out the prison populations, all of a sudden it created all this money. It did. It created a lot of money. And those monies were being handed out to these NGOs and non-governmental organizations, but they were being handed out in a fashion that garnered people votes. I mean, it was a very nice way of buying votes and whatnot. But if you're going to drain prison populations and whatnot, you have to take it back to the amino acids, and you have to provide education, opportunity, and you have to have accountability, which are the three things that California seems to struggle in the most. Look at the overregulation of all of the jobs that we used to have. I mean, if you try to put a person to work nowadays, holy smokes, how much liability are you taking on, right? And then on top of that, education. We're failing in education. You look at the California test scores. So many people are pulling their kids out of schools, and they're going to charter schools, and they're doing homeschooling and whatnot. And I think that we do pretty darn good here in Mendocino County because we're still smaller and rural, and we're doing okay. But when you get down into the cities and whatnot, holy smokes, but that also knocks down the average for the entire state. And some of these things, I just don't think it's okay. Just because somebody isn't, meeting the bar, you don't lower the bar. You've got to keep the bar where it's at. And then if you want to get rid of prison populations, provide education, provide opportunity and jobs, and, jobs that people can make a living on and afford a home and raise a family. But you've also going to have accountability, because if you don't, then people get victimized.
So who we sporting in 2028? There's Sheriff Bianco, right? There's actually a sheriff running.
You know him?
governor.
Yeah, I know Chad.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know him.
We going to get behind him?
Chad's a good guy. He is. But I don't know. For me, I'm at the point where I look at leaders who unite instead of divide.
Yeah.
And so if we have the opportunity to do one or the other, which is easier? Which is easier? It's easier to divide than what it is to unite. Because to unite, you got to be able to speak across those aisles. And I don't know. I like Chad. I think he's a pretty good guy. I've been around him for years now. But will he unite? That's one of the questions I've got to ask.
That's a great question. Yeah, maybe he's too far in one direction to be able to do that.
Well, and the thing is, sometimes when I have conversations with people who don't agree with me or I don't agree with them, by the time that we get done talking, we see each other's points. They will often bring up things that I had not thought about because I haven't lived in their world. I will often bring up things that they haven't thought about because they haven't lived in mine. And if you draw that hard line and you don't have conversations on the other side, you're missing so much of that. You're missing what could make you better. You're missing things that you should not miss as a leader, okay? But we don't just blindly follow some of this BS that comes out on the internet too, and the internet is a big portion of what is dividing us. And let's make that very clear. Mm-hmm. There was a friend of mine shared with me this theory that was put together by an Italian coder, and it's so hilarious. And I wish I could remember the name. He's got this Italian name. He lives in Italy. It's like Bulgarini or something like that. He came up with this theory or this value that it's called the bullshit asymmetry test. And he talked about how you can put something out on the internet and it moves at light speed. It goes everywhere. And it takes you 15 minutes to put out BS. Oh, it's Brandolini's law or the bullshit asymmetry principle.
In an internet
adage coined in 2013.
Italian programmer Alberto Brandolini, it compares the considerable effort of debunking misinformation against the relative ease of creating it in the first place.
Yeah.
And so he goes in and he gives all of these examples of how somebody threw something out in 5 minutes, and 4.5 months later, they're putting out all this information saying why it's wrong, and the guy was just full of it, but they still can't get it drugged back in because there's so much of the population that just believes it.
Yeah. And we were saying on the last podcast, whatever your belief is, you can go on the internet and find evidence of that belief, right? Yeah. And the other person believes the exact opposite, and they go on the internet and find evidence of their belief.
Exactly.
So exactly. It is crazy.
So Chad's out, but Mel Gibson's in.
Hey, how about Mel Gibson?
He could unite.
Freedom!
Yeah. If he paints his face blue.
That's the only way I'm voting for him. And he wears a kilt.
Yeah. Well, I'll endorse Chad. I'll support Chad. But, I think that he's got some really good points that he's working on here. I want to see everybody working together, though, and not you got to be in my camp or you got to be in their camp. How about if we all get in the same camp, which is where we belong in the U.S.?
Mm-hmm. So, you think that's possible?
Yes. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, we lived in a world where it was that way at one point. You know, it's only just seemed, not only, but I mean, it's within
But
the
is
last...
it too far gone?
I don't know.
Is it too divided to bring back to the center again?
No, I think that it takes a lot of work. But let's look at where being divided pays off. And it doesn't pay off for me, and it doesn't pay off for you. It pays off for the political parties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when these guys get elected, and it doesn't matter what's behind their name, there's a push from these political parties that you will toe our party line.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go any place in politics, you're going to continue to toe our party line, or we aren't going to have you as our, our political representative for the D or the R.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's got to stop. And what drives me nuts about it is I will have conversations with these guys, and they'll say, I just can't go against the party. I know it's the right thing, but I can't go against the party. Well, I'm sorry. I thought you had a spine. It wasn't the party's. But they will be ostracized for it. They will.
Yeah.
And that's just wrong.
Yeah.
And like it or not, that's selling your soul.
Yeah, that's the world we're living in.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, though, that you were getting a bunch of calls from everybody but Gavin Newscomb. So, so now it's kind of shifted a little bit, and people are wanting to hear from you and hear your perspective and what your issues are and stuff like that in rural counties like Mendocino.
And Northern California and Southern California might as well be two separate states, if not two different countries.
Yeah.
We are so...
What are we up here? The state of Jefferson?
Yeah.
That's what it is, right?
I think they were going to try to split it up, but nobody wanted Sacramento, so...
Didn't work,
Sorry.
huh? Yeah, Sacramento can be its own state.
Yeah, that's where crazy stuff comes from, and great ideas go to die.
So, but they're contacting you now, and they want your...
Yeah, and, we just recently had that Assembly Bill 1333. Did you guys hear about that one?
Yeah, we
we
talked about it.
Oh, did you? Okay. And, I mean, that is so blatantly ridiculous for Northern California.
Yeah.
Now you've got to try to de-escalate a person who is attacking you, and you got to prove that you tried to de-escalate it before you
Shot him.
Yeah,
Defended yourself.
We thought it was super ridiculous.
You should turn and run. It's like, okay, if my wife's in the other room, I'm not going to just turn and run.
Yeah, we were all calling it the duty to run or surrender. That is so not the United States. That is, that came from a different way of thinking. And I'll tell you what, if this is 4 or 5 years ago, that may have gotten through the Public Safety Committee. That may have wound up out there.
But it didn't, which is great.
Yes.
I mean, that's
He
the
got
whole
shot
point.
down.
I think you see the politicians won't vote outside the party, and so it seems super polarized because the Democratic Party has gone really far one direction. I'm not so convinced that the Republican Party went so far another direction. They seem to be coming closer to the center, in my opinion, with Trump, because he's not such a staunch, hardcore, like classic conservative person. But it seems to me like, as you said, it's kind of swayed, but a lot of the chunk of the majority of Americans are in the middle. They don't really care what you do in your bedroom, and what you decide to do is between you and God, but like, stay out of my business.
Yeah.
And let me just live a good life. And I don't want trannies at school, and I don't want abortion to be completely outlawed in every shape, way, and form. And like, anywhere in between there, we can find some common ground. It just doesn't seem that freaking hard to you know what I mean, to be there for people. I don't know, but it seems to be if you're running for office,
You got to pick one side or the other, and I think that when we get over this idea that there are sides, that's when we're going to get over these problems.
You're right.
But we've got to have somebody walk in the door and say, "I'm not the D guy, I'm not the R guy, I'm the everybody guy."
Yeah.
I totally agree. So what do you think are some of the major, like, what's on your agenda? You got 4 years left. Where are we at in Mendocino County?
Okay, so
Let's talk Mendo
let's
for a while.
talk Mendo. So right now I've got that new wing of the jail being built.
Yeah.
That's going to be for basically behavioral health issues, massive drug issues, and things like that. And it's going to be a pretty exciting time for us because the state put all these mandates on us about how we need to be dealing with things because, let's face it, every county jail has become the largest mental health locked facility in the county. They have. And people can argue, was it the chicken or the egg? We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who have really messed themselves up on drugs. And now the renaming of everything, the nomenclature of everything changing, it gets on my nerves. It just does.
So you're not a big proponent of changing the name of Fort Bragg?
And no, I'm not or going from having county jail inmates and state prisoners to justice involved individuals.
Yeah. I'm there with you.
Yeah, dude, come on.
People
This
experiencing
is one of those things that go swing too far,
Yeah.
dude. We got to reel that shit back in.
justice involved individuals.
Yes.
That's what it's called.
That's what it's called.
Oh, give me a fucking break. That's the best joke of the day so far. Dude.
Some of that stuff has just gotten absolutely ridiculous, and I don't like it. Anytime you start changing the nomenclature from what things are to what sounds better, or what doesn't hit quite as hard, I'm sorry, it's just ridiculousness. But that doesn't change the fact that a lot of our people who have some serious mental health problems, and whether or not the Almighty did it to them or they did it to themselves, they do wind up in my jail.
Yeah.
And what we've got to do is, at that micro level, give education, create opportunity, and have accountability. And it's like Eisen Locatelli always says, it's opportunity through accountability in the probation department. And he's got a good point. And when my staff, and we've had this happen numerous times, they have people come back to the jail 2 years later. Hey, can I talk to Officer so-and-so? And they'll meet him in the front lobby. Just wanted to let you know, got myself a job, 2 years clean. By the way, got married. We see these positive things that happen. You don't see news stories about it. You don't. But we see it on a local level. And a lot of guys, hell, we all grew up around here. How many guys that had their issues when they were younger that turned out to be some pretty damn good people?
Yeah, many.
Yeah, and it was because of accountability. And people making a decision to make a change, and sobriety, of course. Well, I'll tell you what, about the time that the hangovers really start sucking, a lot of us old farts, we quit drinking,
That's very true.
Well,
So you got the new wing in the jail. So when's that going to be built and finished? Or is it already?
well, we're on target for early 2026, January, February. I've got to get 10 more people hired so that I can run that, and it's got to be the best of the best in there.
So then what? You start throwing the what do we call them now? The mentally handicapped? Or no.
Come on, Drew. Jesus Christ.
Throw them in there.
And you're not going to throw them. You're going to place them.
What is it? The druggily insane?
Oh, man.
It's that the behavioral health individuals, it's the guys who are, level 3s and 4s who are really dangerous folks. It is going to be the easiest area to supervise. And then all of a sudden, I don't have them mixed in different, different wings of an old 1985 jail that was built to the best that 1963 could produce, and so I'll take the inmates that are the easiest to supervise. And we have these guys that, they got their third DUI, and by God, they got to come in and do 90 days. Do you know how hard those guys are to supervise? They're not. They want to do their time and go home.
Right.
And we're going to take those that are the easiest to supervise and put them in that jail, the old one that's hard to supervise in, because they just aren't problems. They're just normal people
There
who
to do their thing.
Yeah, they're going to do their thing. And then we're going to take the ones that are really hard to supervise, and we're going to put them in that new setting. And there's a whole lot of education. There's a whole lot of courses and things that we can do with them in there.
Are you going to contract with other agencies to bring in programs and
Yes.
work with them, and crisis and all that stuff is
Yes.
going to be happening as well?
That's already happening right now. I hired Buffy Barasa. I hired her a couple of years ago, and she's my inmate services coordinator, and she's doing all that stuff right now.
Nice.
But the new building is only going to enhance what she's doing as
Yeah.
far as the education and everything else. And we've got a lot of people who have left the door to a job. And believe it or not, there's a lot of guys out there. Idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Yeah.
They walk out the door to a job and they got to be there every day. A lot of the baloney just clears up. I mean, think about it. How much fun would it be for all of us to go out and raise hell and pull bullshit all night long? But it ain't so easy when you got to get up and you got crap to do, right?
Right.
Yeah. and you have accountability,
Yes.
and you have people that depend on you, and you have all those things. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that are struggling are missing those things
Yes.
in their lives.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing to see California kind of moving back closer to the center, and I think that we're going to see more moderates on both sides of the aisle getting elected because everybody's saying we've had enough of this insane left where 2% of the people live, and insane right that 2% of the people live. Let's stick with the folks who are still in that 96% that are somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. So what's the number one crime that you deal with in the county? Like, what's the number
Right
one
now?
problem? Yeah.
My number one issue, and you can take 60% of our crime back here, is addiction. Okay, so
Still, fentanyl, still.
fentanyl, methamphetamine, alcohol. If you've got somebody who's got a bad addiction, you've got somebody that's probably going to wind up committing a crime.
Yeah. Stealing, burglarizing, being where they shouldn't be.
Yes, it'll be theft. It'll be robbery, armed robbery. It'll be something like that where they're feeding their addiction. And, you know, years ago, went in the office on a Sunday, just started going through it, and now I have a different view into things because after being here almost 4 decades now, I know a lot of these guys. And a lot of these guys, you would know them if you look through the bookings, right? These are people you grew up with and whatnot. And they will be in custody on something that you would think was not related to addiction, some type of a domestic abuse or battery. But I know that they've had an alcohol problem.
All boils down to that.
It's that this is what is decaying the social fabric. And so when I see, okay, we've got a domestic here, but then I look at the name and I say, he's had an alcohol problem for the last 15 years. I know that that came from that. And so I can lump that in. So I went through basically everybody who walked in the door for a 2-week period, and I could point directly to addictions in 60%. 60% of what walked through the door. So if we got rid of the addictions, 60% of my bookings would likely disappear.
Do you have programs or a special way of dealing with those folks when they're inside so
Yes.
that they can change and have opportunity when they leave?
And
What's that like?
We start that inside once they're sentenced, so that as soon as they finish their sentence, they've already started on a lot of this programming that probation is going to require of them. And so we get them started while they're in custody, and we try to get them, if you don't have a high school diploma, by golly, you're going to get one. You're going to take anger management or whatever the judge orders, and then we're going to do some alcohol and other drug classes and whatnot. Get them accustomed to attending those things, and then when they walk out the door and they meet their probation officer, and it's not a new concept for them. They say, "Well, what am I supposed to do? You got to do this." "Oh, well, I already started that over in county." "Well, great. You're going to be dealing with the same people, and that's where we're getting to see those successes." I hear a ding ding.
And yeah. Whoa.
I think
I don't
that's
know what
you.
that is. Mine's on silent. And are you seeing
Is it me?
some recidivism like from that? Like, is that paying some benefits? Like, are there more
Yes.
people that are graduating with that? And
Yes, and then the other thing is our drug courts are going to be coming back. Drug court was that, I hate to say it, but it was like a silver bullet. You know, you cannot believe the number of people who go through drug court and come out and are never involved with the law again. There's something magic about it, but it's a hell of a lot of work. And for the last several years, somebody who would have gone to drug court can look and say, well, I can get 7 days in county with no probation and be done, or I can go to drug court and bust my butt for 18 months. I think I'll do 7 days and then we'll start over again.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think about? So what about like illegal cannabis grows? Is that still a problem?
It's a problem up north. We're still seeing a lot of issues with that. But the value of cannabis has dropped so dramatically. But, we also had all these issues with the state rolling this out where I was not a fan of the way that they did things. And we're seeing the implosion of the market across the entire state of California.
Right.
So, and I'm not one of these guys, and trust me, I'm never going to advocate for somebody smoking pot in the same fashion. I don't advocate for them smoking cigarettes, drinking liquor. I mean, I don't advocate for any of that. If I wouldn't tell my kids to do it, I'm not going to tell anybody else to do it.
Sure.
But if a grown-up adult wants to go home and smoke pot until his head caves in, I don't care. Don't smoke and drive, right?
Sure.
And careful with the Cheetos intake. But if that's what they want to do in their home, hey, that's their business. It's legal in California now, right? But the greed behind it is what caused so many issues for us. And
Yeah.
Do you have, is that all those illegal grows, is that a lot of Mexican mafia stuff still? Or
yeah,
are
we
you
have
still
a
at
lot
battle
of-
with them?
We've still got a lot of drug trafficking organizations. It's not just Hispanics, it's Bulgarians and everything else. But where the real money is now, you guys aren't going to believe this, but where the real money is now is, by golly, they get it out to the East Coast, and then it's on a ship going over to the United Kingdom or Ireland. It's worth a hell of a lot of money over there.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys got a plane or anything?
Transnational, baby.
Like the sheriff submarine.
Are you guys
Yeah.
insinuating I should get a narco submarine to haul weed off and
No.
prop up the county budget?
I might be.
We would never. Of course not.
No, but I'm just curious, like, what's your thoughts on it? Because there's definitely a discussion going on now about expanding the canopy for legal growing and, that whole thing. And, I'm also in real estate. I'm a realtor, and I've just noticed, you used to drive around Redwood Valley in town, and it was in every backyard, and that's completely gone, it seems to be, from my perspective. And I'm just wondering, you get people complaining that the legal grows are, a nuisance, and I just see that as, no different than wine and grapes. And, you think it would be an issue to have it be bigger, or, legally?
I think what we should do is get rid of all of the illegal grows and then see where the legal market can go.
Yeah.
But you don't get that by saying, we want you to pay all these taxes and jump through all these hoops. Oh, but that guy over there, if he doesn't do it, we aren't going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like,
So why aren't people getting in trouble, like busted, that are illegal? Like I've
because of Prop 64. Prop 64, if I stopped a tractor trailer going down the road right now with 5,000 pounds of marijuana, do you know what the remedy is? It's a citation.
really.
Yeah, and I think it's a maximum of a $500 fine. So,
Damn. So we don't even need a plane.
no. Well, once you get out of California, you're pretty much up a creek. But the whole thing is, there's just no teeth in that law, and I don't know. It's one of these weird things where if you don't deal with the black market, the white market's not going to be okay.
Right.
I mean, look at all of the problems that were going on down in San Francisco. Did you guys see any of the reporting on basically the street stores that were popping up with all the stolen goods?
No.
Oh, my goodness. There were areas in San Francisco where you could basically go out in the evenings, and they just had all of these open-air markets where you're buying, like, stolen bottles of Tide. You're buying underwear still in the package. I mean,
Wow.
and it's like, it's completely undercutting the stores, and it was all stolen goods.
Right.
And nobody was putting a stop to it because, I mean, first off, they couldn't prove where it was stolen from because nobody had made a report on it, because every time they were calling the cops, there weren't enough cops. Here we go. Mission Street vendors. and
Wow.
All just snatched right off the shelves, huh?
yeah, and all of it was just kind of snatched right off the shelves. And so, I mean, people are just going down
Just
there.
an open air market where you can
Oh,
buy
yeah.
stolen shit.
Yeah, you want to buy a bottle of Tide, you can go down
Oh,
to...
you can get ice skates.
Really?
What the
Only one
shit?
size though, and there's only one skate.
Yeah.
Now we got one.
But these things were
Wow.
popping up all over the place, and because nobody was reporting the stuff stolen because there was no teeth to it.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, all of these open air markets pop up, and I don't know what a jug of Tide costs because, to be honest with you, I don't like to shop, and my wife does it for me, so I'm all happy. But if it's $10, let's call it a bottle of Tide $10, and you can go down there and buy it for $5. Who wouldn't do that?
Right.
So the stores were taking it kind of on both sides. Somebody comes in and steals all their stuff, and nobody does anything about it. But nobody's shopping there anyway because we can just go down to this
Get
area
around
and
the
buy it for
corner.
half price.
Oh man. That's crazy.
It's ridiculousness.
Yeah.
What about the homeless situation in Mendocino County right now?
So we're working.
I haven't seen them for a
things.
while because it's been bad weather, but
Well,
I'm wondering if it's as bad as it has been, or is there improvement? I guess that's
Yes.
my question.
We're making improvement on it right now, and so we put together a team. It's called CORE, Community Outreach and Engagement, and what we're doing is we're sending a deputy sheriff out with these caseworkers who will get people into programs and whatnot, and we've got just about all the nuts and bolts worked out. So you're going to see people in this kind of a purplish vest with CORE written on it, and then you'll see a deputy sheriff. And then we're going to be going and hitting these homeless encampments, and it's what it really comes down to is, hey, we brought the carrot and the stick. If you want to sign up for services and get out of the ditch, that's great. But if you don't want to, well, we're going to sign you up for other services in the new jail, and you make a decision. And then the other thing
Is part of that happening because now there's room
Yes.
in the jail?
well,
Or going to be room in the jail?
yeah, so our jail population I think today was at 242 out of 308, and so I've got 66 beds in there, and the only place that I save money when the jail population is down is in medical services, food, and transportation back and forth to the courts. Turning the light switch on every morning costs me the exact same amount of money. And whether I have 30 people are in there or 300 people, if they are of different classifications, I still have to have the same number of people because you can't mix them together. There's some classifications you just can't mix together.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of the Fort Bragg model, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
a
we
little
had
bit.
Bernie Norval on here, and he was kind of saying they were doing. the
Wait,
same
you guys were feeling the burn?
thing. We were burning all right.
Sometimes I'll call him and I'll sing that old, what was it, Blue Oyster Cult? I'm burning, I'm burning.
Yeah.
He goes, really? And I'm like, no.
So what did I read in the Press Democrat that the county's getting audited? Like did you see that? It was in the press. It was
Recently?
Yeah, it was. What was it?
Well, the county gets audited.
California to
Every
conduct
year.
an audit of all Mendocino County operations and departments.
Is that
Yeah.
just a normal thing?
No.
Yeah, well, it kind of is. I mean, we get audited every year.
Well,
I
this
get audited quarterly.
this had to do with Mendocino County sending out bad ballots. Ballots mailed flawed ballots to all its registered voters before 2024 election.
Oh, okay.
Then a state review found deficiencies in the county's financial reporting, which helped explain why it was chronically late filing its annual financial transaction reports. And then it just goes on, but it looks like they're wanting to know what's up.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, the county gets audited pretty much constantly. I get audited from the board and BSCC through corrections. I get audited through post. I have post audits that go on all the time. I get audited quarterly through the auditor's office. We in our county our accounting software. I can't bring in a dime or spend a dime without it going into this software that creates the paper trail afterwards. So.
A comprehensive audit of all county operations and departments, along with examining the organization's contracts and procurement processes.
Wait,
Sounds scary.
is Doge doing it?
You might be
You
getting,
hope so.
you're getting the chainsaw, dude.
You're a county employee, right?
Yes, I am.
Did you get that email from Elon? That
Oh,
said-
yeah.
You did?
Oh yeah, all of us got. Well, I don't know if it
Whoa.
was from Elon that basically said, "Hey, anybody who is receiving federal funding had better toe the mark and report correctly and blah blah blah." And there's going to be some things that are cut, some things that are not. But it hasn't affected me.
Has it affected anything else in Mendocino County that you know of?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know. But I got my DSEP grant, my domestic cannabis suppression grant, and that's through the federal government.
What's that?
It's what I run the comment unit with, the anti-marijuana unit with it for illegal marijuana.
Yeah. So you guys still fly around and hack and cut plants and stuff like that?
Yeah. And we've got to go after the worst of the worst, which is where we should be.
Yeah.
But hell, if we don't, things will just get completely out of control.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I like to jump in with that helicopter and take a look and see, are we improving or are we not improving? And I can tell you, Over the last 5 years, we have lost 40 to 45% of our illegal grows, but the ones that remain grew by 25 to 35% in size.
And so where are those at? Like, I mean, I guess if you knew, you know. But like, I mean, are we talking like, come on, dude, like where are they at? You know, where are people still pulling off this baloney?
Why don't you pull up a Google Earth image of Round Valley and let's take a good hard look.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Google Earth Round Valley. I believe that there was some reporting that was done in the LA Times that said there are more grow houses than houses by about 4 to 1 in Round Valley.
You can put in Covelo.
Wow. And change it to the real view.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Bingo.
You probably got to go to Google Earth.
Go over bottom left. Yeah.
There you go.
Zoom on in. Let's just zoom in and see what we got going on. A little further.
We're gonna make a lot of friends with Covelo on this podcast. Yeah, so wrap my shit up on fucking.
Let's take a look at just how many grow houses you see there. You see all those plastic domes?
Yeah,
Wow.
So I don't know what size that is. It's about what, half mile by half mile?
yeah,
And that's just dead center downtown, right?
right.
Yeah.
And so keep looking around. My goodness, there's grow houses everywhere up there.
Wow.
I mean, all of that over there. Can you zoom in on that, Spy? Those are all grow houses. I mean, dude, there's like no shortage.
Okay, if we have one thing that's going to get us canceled, this is it, Drew. Thanks for coming, everybody.
That seems like easy.
You're going to get canceled for telling the truth about this? I mean,
No, anybody can look it up.
But I mean,
Oh,
you know,
shit.
like, and that seems like easy pickings. You just drive down the road.
you want to see something that's hilarious? There's a place called Post Mountain. I think it's in Trinity County. Can you pull up Post Mountain?
Yeah, that was gonna be my next thing. Is like, what are we gonna do about Trinity County here?
What do you mean?
Well, I guess we aren't doing anything. But
This is the Mendocino County Sheriff, Drew.
I know, but I mean, like, it's crazy what's going on up there. If you put that in there.
What, are they just going nuts with illegal grows, too?
No, Post Mountain in Trinity County.
Yeah.
I saw this, and it's like,
Trinity County.
No pressure, huh?
You need to be able to play the
Dude, my
Jeopardy
fingers are
theme
flying.
song.
He's getting sweaty palms. I can just feel them.
You're doing good, Dongle.
Yeah.
There
okay,
we go.
buzz in there. So, that looks like maybe it's a housing subdivision or something. But
No way.
Zoom right in. There's like the gabajillions of plants there. I don't know.
No way. All those spots?
Yes, this is what I've been talking about on this
and
podcast.
you can see it from outer space.
Wow. Holy shit.
One of these nights,
It looks
when I
like
have-
vineyards.
Oh yeah, when I have absolute insomnia and like nothing that I can do
Oh
about
my
it,
God.
that is miles and miles and miles. If I have absolute insomnia, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to try to count them. I don't know how many
Holy
millions of plants
shit,
that is.
Man.
So
And this is just going on? They're not law enforcement isn't doing anything about it?
yeah,
Or-
what's the sheriff of Trinity
Oh,
doing?
the sheriff's trying to deal with that constantly, but I mean, go ahead and write me my $500 ticket, and brother, I'll be back to work in the morning.
That's all that is a ticket.
Yeah.
What if there's like slave labor and human trafficking?
Oh, and
going
we've been
on
working
and all
on that.
because there's got to be.
We've been working on the human trafficking angle of it
Yeah.
because we do have, and you have to remember, our porous border created this issue, and we began to run into people who did not know where they were. I mean, literally did not know where they were. I was interpreting several years ago up on a grow site. They needed me to come up, and so I was interpreting and said, hey, before I talk to these guys, I would try to tone it down a little bit because obviously the cops just chased him down. So we just visit a little bit and shoot the breeze. And I'm asking this guy, how in the hell did you get here? And he said, well, this guy picked me up and said he'd bring me up here to Washington. And I was going to be logging pine trees. I'm like, Washington?
Pine trees.
And brother, you're not in Washington. He was like, I'm not? I'm like, no, you're in Mendocino County. He's like, where's that? I'm like, California.
Wow.
Yeah, and so all of these people were being brought across the border with a debit, and that debt had to be paid, and so a lot of them basically were kind of trafficked for slave labor, and we found those folks, and we've said, hey, you're a victim in this, and we're going to get you hooked up with services. And a lot of people have taken services. A lot of them don't want to give up the information about who brought them up there and whatnot, because they do have fears for their families. Yeah. But the way I look at it, it's like an arson, right? Somebody lights your house on fire. The number one thing, let's put it out. And once we get it out, we can work on an arson investigation. But whether or not that investigation comes to fruition, at least we put the house out, right?
Yeah.
And so when we get those people out of those conditions, and a lot of times they get on their feet, we get them with family members, stuff like that. We've had people who have come back and say, okay, now that I know I'm safe and everything's good, here's what's going on. A lot of them still don't want to go to court, but they will give us the goods. And it's because they feel safe and they feel supported. And that's a place where we should be.
Wow.
Yeah, it just seems crazy. I was like, if I was Gavin Newsom and was trying to save my, like fledgling cannabis, legalization that's just falling flat on its face, that might be a good place to start to try and,
that's
salvage.
the type of thing where they don't want to hear from us.
Right.
They do not want to hear from us. We brought all of these issues. In 2020, we met with Nicole Elliott, who's Newsom's appointee to run cannabis in California. Myself and three other sheriffs. Myself, Sheriff Hansel from Humboldt, and Sheriff Saxon from Trinity. And we brought up all of these things and said, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. They didn't want to hear it, so they paid no attention, and they just continued forward. And now we see it all falling apart, and we're reminding them, we told you about this. Yeah, but cops historically have not liked marijuana. No, that is a load of baloney. Cops historically have not liked the violence and the crap that came with it, but we were all looking forward to the legalization of it because we were keeping our fingers crossed that it would be treated exactly like alcohol. And if it was, I don't know that we'd be seeing these same problems. So,
yeah. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff going on. I see a lot of good things going on, but I read the papers and I'm also kind of just like, it's just like I was saying, like, I don't know if you can talk about it either, but like what's up with Shamise Cubinson and ICER and all that whole situation?
That's one of those things where I'm not really involved in that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's all of this reporting on both sides that I don't know, all of it feels like it's just designed to pull everybody apart, and nothing's bringing everybody back together.
Yeah, well, I was reading about it. I mean, they talk about sheriffs investigating and not having emails that's supposed to be there and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, what is all this stuff? It just seems to me like it makes us all look incompetent and kind of dumb up here.
Well, the issues that surround all of that stuff, though, is that you have to remember that sometimes the prosecution and the defense try to bolster things up and make great big news out of everything because that's what serves their sides.
Yeah.
So, but,
How about the Zodiac killer lady guy? Let's talk about that.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about that.
I forgot about that.
That's national news.
Yeah, dude. So let's tell the story. There's this lady who posted a big thing on Facebook that went viral, claiming that her father had killed a bunch of people in Mendocino County in the 70s, something like that, maybe?
No, it was over several decades is what she said.
Over several decades, murdered tons of people, hid their bodies all around, and now he's 90-something and dying, and she has to tell the story and get it out, right?
And he looks like the Zodiac Killer sketch.
Is that what it is? Yeah, Mendocino County, yeah.
So... Now, believe it or not, this is still an active investigation.
Oh, come on, Matthew.
But my portion of it, the portion that I can talk about, is she was alleging that he was involved in a homicide in Mendocino County, that he was the killer here, this, that. And the next thing, we were able to get a DNA warrant, and that DNA warrant did not match the suspect's DNA, okay? So, I'm sorry, that one's kind of a non-starter. And then...
But that was one out of like many that she claimed.
Okay, so let's see.
So
Who
a DNA
most...
warrant. So that means you take her grandpa's DNA or the suspect and match it with DNA from the crime scene that you assume to be the killer, and they didn't match.
No, they did not. And we also loaded into CODIS, the big bank that goes against all unsolved crimes. But let's look at this, and I can speak in generalities, okay? So the most prolific serial killer I can't remember his name, but I think that he was good for 60 that they know of.
People.
Right? 60 people. I think Ted Bundy, I believe that he was convicted on mid-20s, but they figured that he was good for 8 or 10 more. I was talking to a guy who worked serial killers at a conference many years ago, and he had actually done some work on some of the Ted Bundy's cases. And I said, well, how many do you think he was good for? And I said, what's the standard? When somebody gets caught, how many do you feel like he didn't get caught on, or whoever?
Yeah.
And they said, absolute worst case would be 50% more, but we've never seen that. It's usually 10 to 15% more.
Than what they confess to.
Than what they confess to, right? So I believe the absolute most prolific serial killer killed right around 60, all right? And he made his mistakes and he got caught. Now, I think that this young lady is alleging somewhere between 500 to 750.
Murders?
Yeah, but nobody's found a body yet.
Yeah.
Not sure that anybody's that good. And this is just me being...
See,
this
you
is
can
just
find
me
out
being...
how many she said.
I think it was like...
Oh, that's her father and the Zodiac Killers thing?
No, that's not her grandpa, but that's the sketch. And then the guy that she posted, what was her name? I can't even remember. But anyways.
Anyhow, there's some... Now, we do have some things that are still under investigation here because we do have to look at every claim.
Sure.
But I can tell you, let's see, who is the most prolific serial killer in the United States? I know that there was one who was down in like some Latin American country that they figured killed 100 or something.
So what is the Zodiac Killer was somebody who never got caught?
Yeah, he's never been caught. And
if it's even
but
one,
was he?
They're not even sure if it's one person or multiple, right? It's
And
kind
that
of
was
like
from the same time period or something like that. Is that
Yeah.
why people are kind of trying to make the connection? And it was Northern California.
I believe it was Bay Area, and it was all over the place.
The FBI confirms that Samuel Little, 79, is the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history to date. Little has confessed to 93 murders.
Okay.
The FBI's violent crime apprehension program can also confirm that Little has been matched to at least 50 cases.
Yeah. Okay.
Many
so that
more
would
pending.
kind of fall in line with what that detective told me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, and I'll speak in generalities, every detective on the face of the earth, and it doesn't matter whether you work property crimes, narcotics, homicide, your dream is to work a serial killer. It's going from a farm league to the major leagues. If we have information on a serial killer, a buddy of mine who's a sheriff over in Yuba County, he worked on the Nassau murders, and he told me, you cannot believe the amount of energy that you can produce and keep working when, 6 days a week, 14 hours a day for a year.
When you're on that.
When you are on that. And man, when you get that lead and you jump into it and you start working it, it will take an act of God to get you off of it,
Yeah, I've seen movies.
And
Where, it's
if we
crazy
have a
like
serial killer, good God, everybody is chomping at the bit to try to get after it, but we've got to have evidence. And at some point in time, if the evidence isn't matching up with what's being reported, you do have a duty to let the judge know, when you walk in to get a search warrant, you've got a duty to let the judge know, I'm sorry, this person is saying this, we've got evidence that does not match up, and the judge probably will not give you a search warrant because they got to weigh out the information versus the rights of the accused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, click on the pictures up there. That's the one. In the girl and all that. Can you click on that or no? Oh, they just cut it and put it in there. Anyways, yeah. So you can see there's a picture of him there with the glasses, right?
Okay.
Right there on the right. And then if you go back to those Zodiac Killer pictures, that's what everyone's saying. Look, boy, they were lighting the sheriff's department up. Oh, you guys aren't doing shit. God damn it. We got everybody dying out here. What are you doing, Larry?
Is that how you know something's went viral, Matt? Is when you pick up your phone the next morning, you got 18,000 notifications.
Well, that's Broccolini's
No, it
theory.
is. It is.
whatever.
It's the asymmetry theory. And what people didn't realize was we had been working on that case for like a year. And, we'd been working on that case for like a year. And
Recently?
oh, yeah. We started in like late 92, early 93.
Okay.
And we had detectives on the case. And, of course, we aren't talking about it because it's an active investigation. But then all of a sudden it comes out, and the cops aren't doing anything. Well, that's funny. I thought we'd been working on it for a year and found that,
Yeah.
You just can't tell people you're doing it. You just got to let them think what they want and say what they want.
Absolutely.
And stay off Facebook.
But we still have to work on this because there's all of these things that have been alleged, and just because one thing doesn't pan out doesn't mean that none of them will pan out. Yeah. And so we are, continuing to work on it. We've handed a lot of things over to the FBI over the last couple of years. The FBI's worked on it, and the thing for me is I can't go into some of this stuff because let's say that case, I'm not even going to talk about which case we got the DNA warrant on. If the suspect in that is still alive after this reporting and whatnot, now that suspect knows that there's DNA on that homicide. So, I don't know. It does so much damage to investigations to talk about these things because inevitably something will come out that you don't want the real suspect to know about,
Yeah.
And it goes directly back to, I lost 40% of 1 week to dealing with Facebook rumors. Seriously. And that's where that BS asymmetry comes into play because something can throw it out. By golly, you see it on the internet, it's got to be right? And then the people who are actually working on it, they say, no, that's not what happened. Oh, you must be covering something up.
Yeah, you son of a bitch.
Well, let's picture. Basically, it was about 2014 when everybody on Earth wound up with an iPhone in their pocket, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when social media flat took off, right? And look at all of the problems that we've had since 2014 because kids, let's say that we're on a highway and everybody can drive at the speed limit because the cars that we have will do the speed limit, right? 65, 75 miles an hour. That's the information bandwidth that the government has. Then kids are handed something that does 450 miles an hour, and they can put out the information so much faster than what you can say, no, this is what's really going on. And even when you say this is what's really going on.
Yeah, because you can put it out there fast too, but it just people aren't trying to hear that.
Yeah. People want to hear what they want to hear. And this weird, I'm sure that you guys have heard about the algorithms that only feed you the stuff that you like to digest.
Yeah.
And if you're one of these folks who has a conspiracy theory, one of these folks who, and let's face it, there's a lot of people who have an issue with law enforcement. Okay, great, have an issue with law enforcement. But what if we broke it down to what law enforcement individuals do you have an issue with? There's not a lot, right? And so that's one of these things where Bandora, what was his name?
Bandolini.
Bandolini. You're Italian. You should be able to
Yeah.
speak this.
I did. Bandolini.
Yeah. You were just in Italy, having a wonderful time.
I
It
was,
took you forever
dude.
to get there, and it sounded like by the time you got there, you were about ready to kill everybody in the country, huh?
Dude. It was,
I listened to your podcast on that when you texted me. I was like, oh, God, dude. I feel so bad for you.
oh, man. Traveling is not my favorite thing to do. Going there is terrible. Once you get there, it's absolutely amazing. But I don't fit in airplanes. I don't sleep in airplanes. They don't work when I want to use them. It's just a mess.
Just take the sheriff's submarine then.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's it. Yeah.
So, all right. So that guy maybe isn't the serial killer, but you think there is one?
There's a lot of serial killers out there.
Whoa.
There are. Do I think that there's one in Mendocino County? We had Annabelle, and he was a serial killer.
John Jones. Does that count? The cult leader guy?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones.
Oh, Jim Jones.
No, that
he
doesn't count.
Well, that was a serial killing in Guyana, not here.
Right, but he took him from here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How many of those people did he kill?
Oh my goodness, I don't know how many died in the Guyana tragedy.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Dude.
A lot.
There's survivors here from that.
A lot. Yeah, that's a crazy thing.
I don't know. Anyway, so
Yeah.
the issue is though that information, and it doesn't matter what the information is, it travels so fast nowadays that you're playing catch up behind it, and that's one of the reasons why, like our local media here, if something goes on in Mendocino County, they always go to the front of the line. And I don't care if it's what news agency is reaching out. If we've got KZYX...
It could be like it or not.
Yeah, it could be like it or not. We got KZYX, K-Mud, Matt Lefevre, Ukiah Daily Journal. They get the first bite at everything because they care about our people. And then you see these folks showing up from NBC and all these other places. They're looking for a little soundbite. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't do anything for the county with the exception of satisfy morbid curiosity for folks down in the Bay Area or, across the nation. And that's why our people have got to come first because they actually do something for our county.
Yeah.
What about the continued thorn in your side, right? You're talking about Lefevre and you probably don't pay much attention, but you see Trent James putting out videos about Lefevre being he called him LaDouche, I think, and saying the sheriff's department was busting weed grows, even that they sold zip ties to, and all that. And just kind of.
Well, believe it or not, I have never watched one of those.
Really?
Really. I know. I mean, I'm sorry. Sometimes
he's
you
still
got to look at the source.
He's still going.
Really?
Yeah, he's still putting stuff out. I don't.
Well, you got to look at the source. And here's the other thing. I mean, there are people who have grievances.
Yeah.
That's life. But let's look what the grievance comes from. And I'm sorry, I've seen a lot of people in this world who have a lot of grievances over the BS that they've gotten themselves into. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. There's a lot of times where when you're the sheriff, you get to walk in the door on Monday morning and you get a lot of phone calls from people who did something Friday night.
Yeah.
And, okay, well, stand up and take your punishment.
Yeah, they want you to get them out, huh? Like,
no,
come on, Sheriff. I know you got the keys jangling right there on your belt, Luke. Come get me out.
Yeah. No,
you better believe you're getting that phone call if I ever go to jail, Sheriff.
No, I've never had one of those where somebody wants me to get him out or anything like that. But I do have a lot of phone calls from parents and whatnot who are concerned about their kids, who are concerned about, oh my goodness, he got himself into this, that, the next thing. And we all have those people we know and love in our lives, but you have to reassure them that we do have a just system and that things are going to work out, one way or the other. And our society right now, we have had so many people running in the Victim Olympics because it has some value to it. It does.
Yeah.
And I'm almost to the point where I think somebody's going to jump off of a building and sue a parking lot for all the damage it did to them, We have just gotten really, really ridiculous, and people are not taking responsibility for their own actions.
I agree with you, and I think that needs to go all the way around. Like if you listen to Trent, like his point is like that it doesn't apply to sheriffs, right? Like some of the sheriffs, will do something and they're not being held for their accountable to their actions and things like that.
How in the heck would he know whether or not they are? I'll bet money he doesn't know who I fired, who I haven't.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I think he's just going off of, I think that basically who has their jobs. And I don't really want to get in the middle of it or anything, but to me, it's just interesting. Like it goes all around. All of us have to be accountable for what we do, right? And that goes for not both just regular people, but for law enforcement and for politicians and anybody else. Like we're all under that big scrutiny, and that's why I just read. I look at this stuff and I'm like, what really is going on? Because here's the thing, like, listen, if I was you and I showed up and I had to be responsible to keep a whole county safe, and then I had, a bunch of deputies that I'm also managing and dealing with, and all of the stuff that comes along with just doing the job that police officer and cops have to do, like it's a big ball of soup. You know what I mean?
Years ago,
a bowl of soup,
a bowl of soup,
big old bowl of soup.
It's a ball of soup,
and there's definitely a few turds in that punch bowl. You know what I mean? Floating around.
But then there's the other thing where our hands are bound by unions and different case decisions and whatnot. And there, you know, I've canned a couple of guys over the years where people would swing by my office and say, I don't know if it was fair that you canned him. I heard this, that, and the next thing. But what I've always told him is, I can't discuss this with you, and I cannot hand you his internal affairs investigation.
Yeah.
But he can hand it to you. And so go ask him if you can read it. And then you tell me, did I do the wrong thing?
Yeah.
You know how many have come back and said, Zero.
Right. They probably aren't handing out that file, right?
No, they're not handing out that file. They get a copy of their internal affairs investigation and whatnot. And you know what? I've fired a hell of a lot of people. I have. But it's because you've got to toe the mark and you've got to do the right thing. And if you're not, like I've told you fellas before, there are some people who look at employees like they're children. Well, I'm sorry, I have children, and I have unconditional love for my children. I do. Mm-hmm. And if one of them gets in a drunk driving accident or something like that and they wind up over in my jail, I'm going to go visit them on Sundays. I am. I'll go visit my children because I love my children. But I also have son-in-laws, okay? So there's a big difference between your children and your son-in-law. I love my father-in-law. He is one of the most incredible people I've ever met. He's mid-70s, can work like a dog. I mean, I've never seen a man who can work as hard as him. He and I built a house together after work every night with a headlamp on my head. And he could work me into the dirt. I mean, I am literally sucking air over there because I'm getting to be an old fat guy. And he's still running up to the top of the roof and doing the splits over the top of it in his mid-70s.
Good for him.
But I know that no matter how much I admire that man, he looks at me and says, Matt's a good guy, as long as he's taking good care of my daughter, providing her a good house to live in, raising my grandchildren with the morals and values that I think are correct. And as long as I'm doing that, then I get the pleasure of sitting across from him at Thanksgiving. Now, if I go out and start getting drunk and slapping around my wife and being a jerk and gambling away the paycheck, I don't expect that I'm going to be able to sit across from him at Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Same
when
goes-
you look at it this way, if the public are my daughters and these folks are my son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, or the public is my sons and daughters, if they aren't treating the public in the fashion that my father-in-law thinks I ought to treat his daughter, why would I have them on?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. That's said right there.
Well-
hey, I want to know is there a statute of limitations in terms of committing a crime and getting busted for it?
And why is that, Carter?
I'm just wondering. I was asking for a friend.
Yeah, year and a day for a misdemeanor. Most felonies are 3 years and a day. So how long's it been, Carter?
Oh well, no, I haven't committed any felonies that I know about that I remember.
Allegedly.
Drew lit a couch on fire one time.
Really?
Listen to this.
What the hell?
Wow, bro. You just start singing like a bird, huh? When then it's about you. That's what you call deflection.
I had to get the spotlight off of me quick, dude.
Drew lit a couch on fire?
It's
Was
way
it
more
inside or outside the house?
outside,
Okay.
and it was way more than 3 years ago.
In the middle of a street. Sorry,
okay,
dude. Okay.
well, cut it. We gotta go.
Now, hold on. Dongle, do you have that first video that I sent you? Yeah. Okay. So this is, believe it or not, this isn't the first time that Drew and I have had a show together.
Oh no.
You have to make sure the audio's up too, because it's kind of quiet. But so our very first show, yeah.
First ever episode of the cruise show. We thought everything was so funny to us when we were baked ski that we figured we gotta see if it really is as funny as we thought it was. So we're gonna go smoke this, and we'll be right back to
Oh my
Carter
God.
Cruise Show.
Why would you put this on the internet, dude? I hate you.
I haven't smoked in a long time, so I'll be fucked up.
Wait.
Alright, we're back.
Oh my god, you found that?
Holy shit, dude.
Oh, you youthful guys.
Yeah.
So,
Isn't that
yeah.
cool?
Look how thin I was. Huh?
20 That's what we were doing in 2001.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that was the first. That's the first time we ever smoked weed.
Definitely.
Ever.
Yeah.
And then we proceeded to sit there for an hour and a half and eat a whole bag of Cheetos and talk a bunch of stuff that was incoherent to each other. But
Well, when you think about it, though, I mean, a lot of these things where we've got these people who are supportive and detractive, let's call it that. We have supporters, we have detractors, and we got a whole bunch of people who are neutral in the middle. And there are those people out there who are, for lack of better terms, going to be critical from any direction depending on who they're going to be critical of. And that's what bothers me in the United States right now. If the Republicans do something that, is going to improve our lives, why is it there are people screaming about it just because it's Republicans? If the Democrats do it, why are there people screaming about it just because there's Democrats? And a lot of the grievance candidates, when you look at the things that they throw out, it's not that they truly have a grievance against what's going on. Sometimes it's just, I've got a grievance and I got to find something to attach it to, and I don't know if it's any real way to get ahead of those issues. Like, things will be reported on the internet that weren't true, but it takes longer to get ahead of them to show that they weren't true. And, we're in a strange time, and it's just because of the social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes you just got to ignore it, keep your head down, and keep running and gunning. You know what I mean? Because otherwise you just spend 40% of your work week dealing with
On Facebook.
dealing with bullshit.
The week before, the HSI, Homeland Security, had been up here, and I spent 40% of my week dealing with that, and it wasn't. Everybody was calling me saying Lemigra's in town. Well, I finally get a hold of them. People don't realize Lemigra, immigration.
Oh.
Homeland Security has all of these details, and a lot of them are not immigration. They are working cases because they're in charge of, like, if somebody is abusing a child and puts it on the internet and it goes across state lines, that's their issue to deal with, because it's they've got some exploitation of a child or something that goes on the internet. They deal with that. But then they show up in town and they're working 2 or 3 different cases, and I get 500 telephone calls wanting to know, why is ICE in town? And hell, I don't know. They don't check with me.
Yeah.
And finally, when I'm able to run it to ground, I spoke more Spanish in 6 hours than what I had in the last 6 years. And I'm telling my buddies on the phone, hang on a sec, I'm trying to find the words. It's been a long time, And all of a sudden, then when I get to the bottom of it, I tell everybody, hey, it's Homeland Security that's working felony investigations. But all of this other stuff has gone down the road first. Oh, no, that's not what it is. I heard from this guy over here that it's this. Well, now I got to chase that guy down and say, where did you hear that? Well, I heard it from over there. And after a while, it's just kind of a waste of time.
Right.
So you throw the information out and say, here it is, mic drop and walk away, or you're going to lose the entire week dealing with trying to chase down a ghost of a ghost of a ghost of a ghost,
So that's what was happening a little while ago. It wasn't Trump's border people kind of trying to get people out of here.
No. And
Because that's like you're saying that, and I remember seeing a post being like, hey, just to let everybody know, ICE is here.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of something,
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Right.
Well, and if you look at what's been going on across the United States, there's all of this fear-mongering going on. And that's what it is fear-mongering. And then when you talk to these people from either side, everybody's being pretty reasonable,
Right.
I spoke with one fella, and he said, hey, we have got a list of really, really bad people. And we're talking child rapists who are here in the United States illegally. People who have been deported for these things who came back, and they said, we got to get through that list before we can touch anything else. We got to get through this list. And it's going to be years and years just to get through that list. So they don't have time to go out and just grab some guy who's going to work and doing nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, how can we help you catch pedophiles? Like, what is it? What is the problem here?
And here's the issue. So Cal Matters calls me on the phone and says, what do you think about Trump saying that he's going to deport every undocumented in the United States? And I said, I think it's laughable and it's absolute bullshit. Well, what do you mean? Well, there's like 12 million undocumented in the United States, and so we need a minimum of like 6 million immigration officers, right? We don't have that. And so I get this call from Department of Justice saying, well, you were unsupportive of Trump's deal over here. Would you support the sanctuary city? I said, no, I'm like an equal opportunity hater when it comes to people doing dumb shit. and what do you mean? I go, you guys have pushed through this law that says it's a sanctuary state, and I can't have any conversations with immigration about immigration stuff. And so you taking and binding my hands is not creating public safety. Instead of somebody commits a crime, they serve their time, and I can let you know when he's getting out of jail, and then you can deport him. They say, oh, you can't do that. So now they've got to go out in the neighborhoods and look for them. And that's not okay, because is that safer, or is it safer to come pick him up out of my custody when he gets done serving his time, where we know that he's not armed, where we don't have to go into someone's home where there could be weapons? I mean, that's the way that we used to do it. You know, the old Border Patrol would show up at county jail, and they would go through a list of files, and they say, hey, what about this guy, this guy, this guy? Oh, he's been convicted of this, and he's not supposed to be here, and he was previously deported. We're going to put a detainer on him. When he gets within 5 days of being released, you need to call us. And they'd show up, and they'd pick up 2 or 3 guys. And these were some pretty serious criminals. And they would take them to either self-deport, if they said, no, I'm not going to fight this, I'm going to just go, or they would take them before a magistrate down in San Francisco. And that was way safer than saying, okay, there's all these guys in the neighborhoods, go find them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hucklebuckle beanstalk, huh?
Yeah. And my whole point with these guys is, when are we going to stop fighting and start fixing? One of the things that I'm pushing on right now is trying to get, I've got a whole bunch of DACA kids, you know, that Dreamers Act, the delayed entry kids who came here to the United States and they're 2 or 3 years old. Why would you deport them to a nation that they have never grown up in? Mm-hmm. It makes no sense, right? That'd be like deporting me to Ireland, right? I'm sorry, I wouldn't fit there. I've got a bunch of them that work for me as deputy sheriffs and corrections officers because they can legally work in the United States. It used to be that if a person was in the United States and they joined the military, then they would put them on a path to citizenship by the time that they got out of the military. Why aren't we doing the exact same thing for firefighters, for police officers, for educators? Think about these jobs that are hard to fill. And then you think about all of these kids who have grown up with all of our kids. They're just as American as everybody else. Why aren't we building that pathway for them? Because, you know, you're giving a service that we need right now.
You're so on the money. I couldn't agree more, because the whole thing is like so negatively connotated in like, oh, get rid of them, get them all out of here. And like, it's like, okay, maybe that's part of it. But the other part of it is like, we need to fix the pathway to bring people into this country, either legally to stay or legally for a while. But either way, there should be like always fresh. There's nothing wrong with immigration and people coming to the country. And maybe part of the problem is that legal migration is broken also.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's a huge, you don't hear that anywhere. And it drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's the issue is that, you know, and then the other thing with the borders just being wide open for, you know, several years, now we've gotten a lot of people in that weren't properly vetted, and we're going to have some problems with them. That's life. But why aren't they reaching out to the sheriffs and police chiefs who know their jurisdictions and saying who's being a problem, who's not? But we can't talk to them, so we can't tell them.
You can't talk to Homeland Security?
Not about immigration stuff.
Is Homeland Security in charge of, or is that ICE, or is there a
Homeland
difference?
Security is the agency over the top of ICE. Homeland Security encompasses a lot of different things. So.
Got it.
But, you know what, they might be afraid that I'd wind up picking up some Italian and Irish kids to go too, because if they said, hey, who do you want deported? I got a list. Wait, he said he was born here and he speaks English. No, he's Italian.
Pretty sure not. He's a broccolini or something, dude.
He's been the biggest pain in the butt you've ever seen. So
Yeah, he's out.
just kidding, hell. But we need to look at these things and have everybody stop fighting and start fixing. How come nobody's coming in the middle and saying, okay, there's no way in hell we're going to deport 12 million people, and let's take a look at the ones who have done absolutely nothing wrong and have brought a lot of things to our communities.
Yeah.
Because everybody can think of a family, and it doesn't matter what nation they're from, who has come here and done nothing but work hard, raise a good family, and, you know, live the American dream. Whether or not they were documented, who cares? You know?
I agree with you. I mean, some people would say, well, you're a lawman and they broke the law initially, right? I mean, so they're a criminal by definition. But I agree with you in that.
But what most people don't understand is if a person enters the United States illegally, they have broken a civil issue, basically. And if they decide when they get picked up, if they decide to go to court to fight to stay in the United States, they're not fighting a criminal charge. They're fighting a civil issue. It's a civil deportation. If they return after they've been deported, then, of course, you have a crime, federal crime. But, it's one of these things where it doesn't seem like anybody is interested in fixing and everybody's interested in fighting.
Yeah. I think I said on here, there's so much fentanyl coming across the border, and it's all over. I was thinking we should round up our people that are on fentanyl and take them to Mexico.
Yeah, the problem came from your side of the border and all of these pills, and so you're going to have to run them through rehab.
Yeah, it's a solution. Rather than them having to get it here and break the law, if we just bring the addicts down to them, then they don't have to traffic.
But I have been in numerous conversations.
That's inhumane, Drew.
Or genius. Or genius. Just think about it.
Drew,
That's all we ask is that you consider what Drew has to say on this podcast. That's the only thing we ask of you.
I'm not even going to say. I'm going to say I'm Matt Kendall, and I do not endorse this message.
All right, turn it out.
But I've been in a lot of different conversations with a lot of our partners that work in the narcotics world, DEA and whatnot, and I can tell you that it's getting a lot harder to find drugs on the street now that the borders have been shut down.
Isn't that great?
Oh yeah, no, we've seen a dramatic decrease in drugs on the street.
Amen.
And the main problem
Funny how that
was
works.
it was the first time in my career that I have ever seen the supply driving demand. And I read an article that was pretty well written that talked about how the Ford Motor Company was the first time in the United States that we saw supply driving demand. And, all of a sudden we're back to it with fentanyl, and that is not a good place to be.
Yeah. So you talked for a little bit about trying to get back into the center of things and working on, viewing things from the middle perspective instead of one or the other. How do you feel like that is working within Mendocino County and the people that you work with? And is everybody able to get along
Yes.
and kind of have a general view of where we're going and what we're doing?
Absolutely.
Great.
And I think in the county, especially right now, like even with elected boards, even with the city councils, the board of supervisors, I think all of them they're pushing for what they need to push for. But at the end of the day, even if they don't agree on something, they're still colleagues and they're still friends.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good place to be. I mean, Ted Williams and I, good golly, we butt heads on a lot of stuff, but he's a good man. And at the end of the day, there's a lot we agree on more than what we disagree on.
There you go.
And, when you look at the way that we do things in Mendocino County, especially right now, he and I can have conversations on every topic under the sun. We aren't going to agree on 100% of him, but there's a lot more times where after I listen to where he's coming from, we can find a middle ground where everybody gets to win on it. But if you don't talk, you don't ever find those things.
And isn't that the point of all this? Is to be able to talk to people and find a common ground?
Yeah, well,
Jeez, man.
and when you look at our county, the districts are so completely different in their needs that if we didn't have 5 representing those 5 districts, without that discourse, without that pushing and pulling, and they're doing it professionally and they're doing it as professional colleagues and friends, we wouldn't get the needs dealt with in all these 5 districts. And I think it's kind of a testament to a good direction that we're moving right now.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do think the new board with Bernie on it and a few of the others, they're making an effort to try and address the problems that we have and not be all political about it, but really just try and get things done to help the county do better. I see that. Yeah.
Well, and you look at the different supervisory districts and the needs in them, it's like we got 2 different states in the same county at times.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know. Well, good stuff to hear from you, man. You feel like things are better than they were 6 months, a year ago, and that we're headed in a pretty good direction, it sounds like.
I truly think we are. Now, we are facing some financial troubles. That is the truth. And one of the things that we've got to do is we got to draw a line in the sand where we're going to put people back to work in our counties, but the chokehold of the overregulation of everything in the state of California is just beyond belief. I mean, look at the fuel prices here compared to everything else, because we've been regulated into, and now all of these refineries and whatnot that are just leaving the state because they don't want to put up with this.
I was just in Florida paying $2.90 for gas.
Yeah.
$2.90.
That's crazy. What do you think? Do you have any opinions or views or ideas about the dams being shut down around here? They're talking about the Potter Valley and
what bothers me more than anything else is all of these politicians have made up their mind, oh, they're coming out. Nobody is putting a pause or a reverse on it. Nobody is pausing to say, let's look at what's going to happen when this happens. And that bothers me. And they come up with a two-basin solution. I don't know that that's the best solution, but here's the thing. The only dog that I have in the fight on this is the well-being of the county. And if Potter Valley no longer has farming, I'm sorry, that's a problem.
It's a major problem.
It's a huge problem. And then people aren't thinking about what happens downstream. And it's like California has gone so far one direction that they just can't even say, okay, we're going to get back in the middle and we're going to work this out.
It's a bigger agenda. Because it doesn't make common sense, and it's not about fish. It's anti-humanism disguised as environmentalism, and it's a problem. If you don't have people who can farm, people who can grow food, then we don't have food to eat, we don't have water, and what happens? You just become weaker and weaker and more dependent on the state.
Well, the issue is we've got so many programs to get people on the government dole, and I'm sorry, one of the true tests of a society is how much does it rely on the government. And if you have nothing but government reliance, you don't have a good society.
Amen.
That's the way it works. You know, there's a couple of tests. One is, how do we treat our most vulnerable? And we should look at that. But normally it's children and the elderly. But now, this renaming, this new nomenclature of everybody, criminals are being looked at as victims. I'm sorry, that's not the world I grew up in.
Yeah, what are we calling them now? Judicially challenged or something?
Justice involved.
Justice involved humans.
Yeah.
It's like people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
And you have to take it back to the amino acids. And, you know, there are a whole lot of people out there who want to claim victim status who are the victim of their own laziness and their own foolishness. All right? And that's the truth. I've known a lot of people who grew up pretty disadvantaged who did just fine because they made a decision that they were going to. And are we making things better by lowering the bar? I don't think that ever helps anywhere, and it puts more people on the government's dole, and that is not a good life for anyone. Yep. And I've always been kind of anti-government assistance, not because I don't think people need help. I'm against it because it's a really crummy life for everybody who's on it and everybody who's involved. They don't have as good a life as people who go out and make a living and earn their own, and their children don't have as good a life. And so I believe in government assistance as a hand up to get people on their feet, but once they're on their feet, let's get them to work. But then all of a sudden, when all of the work has been legislated out of existence, I mean, I'm quite a bit older than you young fellas, but how many of you guys remember people who worked in sawmills and worked in the woods who had their own home?
Right.
Yeah.
How many people do you see have their own homes now working there?
Right.
Right. Well, and you see an effort to bring manufacturing back to the United States, and it's being met with just worldwide protest. It's like, I wish people would spend a little bit of that time and energy that they put getting upset into learning actually what's actually going on. And you make a good point. And you know, to your point, it's a bad life for everybody but the ones that are making the rules.
Yes.
Eating at the French Laundry and, you know, rules for thee but not for me. And then as they're the ones in control of your handout, then you're going to do what they want you to do, and that's the whole end game, I think, there. Versus, you know, maybe it's time that it just drives me crazy. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but you look at the stock market, and it's like, how many people in this room have a huge amount of money in stocks? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so who's getting rich from the stock market? So why are these people protesting? If we have tariffs that are making it so that it doesn't make sense to produce everything out of the country, then you bring things back into the country. And as he's saying, for like manufacturing, yeah, you're not going to have it be like it was in the 70s and 80s working, but it's going to be robotics, and somebody's got to program the robots and change the mechanisms and be a mechanic and engineer and build the factories and run the factories and put the solar, you know what I mean? It's all there, and those are the jobs that need to come back here. And I think, you see Trump making an effort to start that, and
Everybody's burning Teslas.
and everyone's burning
Oh
Teslas.
my goodness! Can you believe that? Can you believe that?
I got one.
You got one, don't you?
Yeah.
Has it
I
gotten
know.
keyed yet?
No, but it went from being like
Shit.
only, gay guys have that car to being like, I wrapped it in an American flag, and every time I drive it, Lee Greenwald sings.
You have not been keyed yet. Well, Carter and I are going to take care of that.
I'll call the sheriff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what are you going to say when it was like, Matt and Carter were here, 87 rules,
I'll just post it on Facebook.
Yeah, you bet.
Be another fire you got to put out.
Oh, my goodness.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. And I have not confessed to even wanting to do that, okay? Because I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for the record.
Yeah, just for the record.
Play the tape back.
No, but that's the whole thing is that and that's the other issue that I have when people say that destroying somebody else's property is a protest. I remember all of the protests that were going on a few years ago, the anti-police protests. There was all of these different groups. There was BLM, there was 2 or 3 others, and people were being victimized, and they were saying, oh, it's a protest. No. When you burn shit down, it's called arson.
Yeah.
All right?
No, that's a riot.
That's a riot.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is when you see deputy sheriffs or police officers show up at protest, 99% of the time, when we show up, it is to protect a person's right to protest. We do. Don't go out and break the law, but my golly, nobody's going to come mess with you while you're protesting, because that's my job to ensure the fact that you can. Mm-hmm. Almost all of our protests in Mendocino County have been nothing but basically people letting their voices be heard, but nobody breaking stuff, nobody burning stuff, nobody vandalizing stuff, and that's the way that we want it.
Right.
Then you go to these other places and you see this stuff that goes on. I'm sorry, somebody needs to call it a riot, and they need to clean it up, and they need to stop it.
Yeah.
But where's the political will to do that in these other areas? And that's where we're not heading in the right direction on that. And even a dog knows the difference between being kicked and being, stepped on. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, there's some folks out there who are saying they're tripping over the dog. No, you're kicking it.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
You heard it here, folks.
Like it or not.
Like it or not. I appreciate you making time
Yeah.
to come in here and talk to us, man.
All right, I thought you guys were setting me up for something bad, like I was going to walk in and it was going to be a blanket party where you guys just kick my butt or something. When you text me on a Sunday, you're like, hey, can you come on the broadcast tomorrow? I was like, okay, what's this all about?
What's the catch, huh?
He had to check Facebook real quick. See what the latest rumor was.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, what's this about? What have I done now?
Yeah.
You know when your wife's like, hey, I want to talk to you, and you're like, oh, God, what have I been doing now?
You're trying to think of what it could be about.
Yeah, and then she gets in my load, and I'm like, you have caught me doing way worse shit than that. Come on, let's be realistic here.
Well, I'm glad that I have that effect on you because I've felt like that with law enforcement my whole life, dude.
Yeah, if you called me and said, hey, Drew, I needed to see you tomorrow in my office, I'd be like, no, sure.
This buddy of mine who's a cop, he made me laugh so hard. I was driving down the road, and I look in the rearview mirror, and there's a game warden there. I grew up in Covelo, and I don't think that I bent too many game warden rules. I was pretty decent.
Yeah. What was this?
But my buddy says, you know how come cops don't like game wardens? I'm like, I don't know why. And he goes, because game wardens treat cops like cops treat everybody else. And I was like, oh, yeah, good point. Okay. Yeah, you make a good point.
Well, dude, we appreciate all your efforts in Mendocino County for helping us be safe and making this place the best, because there's a lot of really, really good stuff here. And appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us and talk to the public. Is there anything else you wanted to put out there? Anything you're working on or anything you need?
We're going to continue working on legislation and whatnot, and that's one of the things that I'm going to work really hard on over the next couple of years. Like I said, I'll make a decision in a couple of years whether or not I run again. But I'll be just about 60, and so going anything past 40 years quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I think that we're in a good point in Mendocino County. We need to bring back some jobs and whatnot and get more people working. But I'll tell you what, it's a pretty damn good place to live. It really is. And we're making a lot of inroads and moving in good directions. I'm working on some legislation, with the federal government, hoping that we can get some of these young folks who are out here doing a good job for us, those DACA kids and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Let's try to get them a pathway. I mean, can you imagine being deported back to a country that you haven't seen since you were 3 years old? Would you be a portion of the population? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I think it's foolishness, and I'm hoping that we will start to look at leaders that are going to bring us together instead of tearing us apart. But when you look at what's easier to do, tearing people apart is a hell of a lot easier than bringing them together. Let's look at all of the baloney that goes on the internet that is tearing people apart as opposed to bringing them together.
Yeah.
And it's like gossip and rumors. It's fun, but what good does it do? It doesn't do anybody good in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, united we stand, divided we fall,
Yeah.
right? I totally agree with that.
Well, I tell you what, if we don't fix this, we will be the divided states of America. So, we'll get there, though. I do. I really believe this, and as we move forward in this, I think Mendocino County is still a hell of a good place to be. I do.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, fellas.
Sheriff of Mendocino County, Matt Kendall, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with us today. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for having me, guys.
See you on the next one. Like and subscribe, por favor.